Hello, movie lovers. Welcome home. My name is Amy Henserling, and you are listening to Watch This List Unplugged. This is episode 9, and I have with me special guest Bob McCully, who is here to talk with us about a truly insane midnight movie. I'm going to put that in quotes until you can prove it, Bob. But Bob, say hello to everyone, and please introduce yourself to those of us in the Letterboxd community who don't know you yet.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bob McCully, as Amy Henserling pointed out. I've been writing for Letterboxd for 8 or 9 years, I think. And I just started writing for the 13th Floor, where I've also started doing some podcasts. So, yeah, I'm looking forward shout out to the 13th Floor. It's ttf13.com. And yeah, I'm stoked to talk about this wild movie.
Bob's actual introduction to this for me was like, Amy, I'm pretty sure that you're going to hate it.
Yeah.
And actually you kept telling me that, like, in various ways. It was like, and then I was like, okay, I guess I'm just not going to like this movie at all. So I was kind of gearing up psychologically to sort of prepare myself, but I don't think one can really prepare themselves for nightmare weekend.
No. It truly is a nightmare weekend. Watch it.
And Bob, you have seen this how many times?
I've lost count.
Oh God.
Yeah, I've watched it so many times at different times of the day. I've watched it sober. I've watched it drinking. I've watched it high. I've watched it every way you can. I'm pretty sure I've watched it like upside down on my couch at some point. I still do not understand what this movie even is or is even trying to be. And I think that's phenomenal.
And perhaps that's your really, like, maybe that's your criteria for what a midnight movie is, that no matter how many times you've seen it, you will never grasp its intention. Is it fair to say?
Well, okay. For me, a midnight movie needs to be exciting. Like, that's the key thing, right?
Okay.
But it also needs to be, to a degree, kind of transgressive. Like something that you're not going to play before midnight. You know what I mean? And in this case, I think Nightmare Weekend is just so absurd and bizarre that it is transgressive because of that. But then it's also like almost kind of porn at times.
Almost.
But it's also like a puppet movie.
All right, we're getting into this prematurely. Okay. So no, not your fault, because I led us into this discussion. So Before we start, as per normal, as I have done with the Midnight series especially, one question that did inspire me after seeing Nightmare Weekend was to ask Bob what is his favorite movie that is about an experiment gone awry or an experiment gone wrong, because that does occur in this film. But taking us out of Nightmare Weekend just temporarily,
right.
What is another movie that is about that you really like?
Okay, so
I'm ready.
My first answer was Synecdoche, New York, because it's one of my favorite films of all time. And I could argue that it is sort of that concept, because is it Caden? Is essentially Caden, like making an experiment that goes wrong in a lot of ways. The experiment of like putting on that production in that building that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. However, I'm someone who wants to highlight obscure, films that have like barely been seen by people. So I'm not going to go with that pick. I'm actually going to go with this film, The Passing. I don't know if that's backwards or not. So this is I think early to mid 80s Baltimore shot, low budget film about it's like essentially two storylines that intersect. One is about these two old men that are like best friends. I think they're war vets that live together. And another storyline is about a man who is trying to take for a revenge on, I think it's like his wife or girlfriend who was assaulted. And so eventually it leads up to the young guy in the like revenge storyline becoming the vessel for one of the old men. So it's like an experiment of like putting him into that body. And then I don't even know if you could say it goes awry per se, but like the last half hour of the film just dives into this completely experimental, like surreal piece of whatever. Like it's just a ride, and it's a fantastic movie, and like no one has watched it.
No one has logged it.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, people are starting to check it out now, but I highly recommend checking it out. It's one of the strangest and just like unique films I've ever seen. So yeah.
Well, and for Bob to say that something is strange and unique, I'm almost afraid to watch it, actually.
No. This one makes sense, and this one is I would say
sure.
Okay, take it with a grain of salt, but it does. This one is I would say like a good movie, whereas Nightmare Weekend is you could argue it's a bad film. Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So this one has enough. I was going to say like narrative clarity, but this has enough of a through line where you can follow it. Would you say? Yeah, like this 100%. Has an actual plot.
Yes, that's what you can tell. Like, whoa, they totally had a script. Like every day of shooting. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I love that we're at that level that we have to clarify that, but that makes sense. Okay, so it's Synecdoche, New York on the DL, and then the passing as your like true answer.
Yeah, I think that's what you want to go with. That's the right answer to go for. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll set this up. So Nightmare Weekend came out in 1985. Definitely has a little bit of an 80s vibe. Directed by Henry Sala. Okay, Bob, I actually personally thought of Twin Peaks quite a bit during this, which is late 80s, early 90s. So I would have put this at closer to the 90s than the 80s, but we'll see what you think. But tell us about what Nightmare Weekend is, but then also your personal attachment to it, because I think your feelings about it are the most interesting thing about this experience. But tell us about both.
Okay, so what Nightmare Weekend is?
Yes.
I don't know.
Try to like set it up in a way that anyone would be like, oh, what is Nightmare Weekend? Like, what's this film?
So going off of the last time I watched it, which was I think 2 weeks ago, it seemed to be about these college girls that are friends that are entering into an experiment. I think they're getting paid to do this experiment, which is over the course of a weekend.
$500, supposedly.
Right. Okay. So I'm glad you picked up that fact. We don't actually ever see the money, pass hands at all. So
no.
So one friend though is actually not going to do the experiment because she is wanting to hang out with her father. And this one girl is sort of like the main star, I would say. And she has a best friend who is a hand puppet named George, who's connected to a computer named Apache. And the hand puppet controls the computer, and the computer controls everything, or like can control whatever it wants. And that can lead to people like dying, cars crashing. So there's that storyline, and she meets Dale Midkiff from Pet Sematary, and they fall in love. And he's also working with the company that I think created Apache, although that's not entirely clear. But it's the girl's father who invented Apache, who works with the woman who runs the company that's doing the experiment that the college girls are doing at this house, and it leads to them like having sex with different people
randomly, in different locations.
The backseat of a car while a guy is fixing it outside.
The tire,
yeah, and they're all really like in love. Like it's very romantic.
Yeah, it's very tender, right?
It is very tender, yeah.
Strangely, oddly, and feels somewhat out of place in context, but yes.
Right.
At least it doesn't have some sort of like sleazy...
Wait. What is the context, though? Like, when you get halfway into this movie and you're like, at this point, everything is out of context because nothing is really connecting at all. Like, what is up with... Go ahead.
There is no, they're really, okay. The context, let's just assume everyone who's listening to us talk right now, everything is going to be in air quotes. Okay. Any word that I use for this film really should be. But yeah, the context is that there's some sort of experiment going on or some sort of phenomena that's going on with the computer program and the puppet. There's like a ball, right?
The spheres.
Spheres that come out that have some sort of effect on people.
Yeah.
But none of it is explained in exposition in any sort of way. There's no dialogue that would give you a clue as to what's going on.
And so I normally like that a lot. I love watching a movie where it's not like holding your hand. You kind of have to piece it together. And maybe that's why I do enjoy this film in a weird way, is because it really is almost like puzzle pieces from like a million different puzzles. You know what I mean?
Right.
Thrown together, and you're just piecing together, trying to figure out like, what is the map of this film? Like, where am I? And the only conclusion that I've come to about it is that it is just a nightmare weekend. It is a passage of time. It is from Friday to Sunday, and terrible things happen, and people fall in love, and that's all you can really apply to this movie. Like, that's the plot, is it's a nightmare weekend.
So, okay, Bob, tell me, in your different psychological states, in your different levels of intoxication and or drug-induced, what have you, what were your different interpretations? Have you had different conclusions from this film from seeing it so many times, or are you always left with the same impression?
I don't know if necessarily the plot changes so much that every time I watch it, it feels like there's new scenes that I didn't pick up the previous time, and that the coherency of the plot changes to certain degrees, which I think happens, when you watch a film at different levels of intoxication. But with this film, I've watched it sober numerous times, and it still is so incoherent to me. Like, to say that it makes sense, you're being really generous.
So do you enjoy this sort of state of not knowing what is going on?
Yes.
Like,
yes,
so,
I do.
okay, so
yes, I love it.
That's something that you like.
Well, it's not like I enjoy that for every film. I think that this is a fantastic example of that. Like, this is an enjoyable example of incoherency. To me, it's so fascinating to watch.
So what would be an example of unenjoyable incoherency? Just out of curiosity, this is veering a little bit, but I'm just curious. What would you say that you've seen where you would be like, this sucks, I'm not feeling like you actually don't like it? It's putting you on the spot a bit.
It is, because
I know. I'm trying to even think of a movie. Because a lot of times, for me at least, movies that are incoherent are vibe movies.
Sure.
Everyone's gonna kill me for this, but like Fallen Angels.
Oh,
Kar-wai,
okay.
Or Last Year at Marion Bad.
Haven't seen
another
that one.
example. Okay, don't. I'm just warning right now. But you might this might be your brand. But that's an example where you're kind of like, what's going on? I have no idea, but I'm like uncomfortable and or bored. Where it's not positive.
So nothing comes to mind immediately, but I would say that in order for me to dislike that experience, I would have to really dislike the content of the film, aside from the incoherency. Do you know what I mean? So the fact that, like, I love puppets, so to see a hand puppet, as shitty as that little George looked, like, that was like a $3 puppet. But the fact that it was in this film just blew me away. And so it's connected to a computer that is also kind of a character. And that alone in this film, that is also, like, at times kind of gory, a little bit.
Yeah,
and
especially at the end.
At times kind of erotic. It's such a bizarre combination of elements. And so for me to dislike an incoherent film, it would be like the most, I don't know, like the most bro-y comedy that didn't make any sense or something.
Okay, so what's happening here is like the disparate pieces are what, like the different pieces that come together to make this is what you like, basically. Yes.
Oh yeah. But I think that makes sense. Like I think most people would feel that way, right?
So no, I think that it makes sense, especially in this context, because it's like if you were a person who didn't like the different elements, then the whole movie wouldn't work for you. Right. Because that's basically what this movie is. It's a bunch of random sort of rabbit trails into different plot points.
Right.
Plot points.
But I think at the same time, like we do have to highlight the fact that there are recurring characters and there are attempts to make this one coherent plot. So it isn't just like a collage of random images. It just feels like the script was not followed properly by everyone, or that even the script that did exist didn't make any sense. You know?
So what do you actually know? I know you know some about like the making of, right? Yeah. You know a little bit of backstory. Tell us what you know about like how it was made, or the sort of the behind the scenes info.
Yeah, there's a behind the scenes kind of interview on the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray that I watched, where I think it was the effects artist who actually learned under Tom Savini, hence the somewhat decent gory moments that happen. And he said that it was basically the product of like a French film production crew and a French director working with an American production crew, and they didn't really jive together super well. I think he said that he just was like left to his own devices a lot, and there was a script that was in French and a script that was in English, and both were passed around.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I think that majority of the actors were English-speaking actors, but only one person, I think it was, did their own dubbing. So Dale Midkiff, for instance, who is like a somewhat well-known actor, like he's been in Pet Sematary and Streetwalking, I think that's what it's called. He's been in a bunch of American movies in the 80s, and he's in this movie, and he's got a weird dub voice, which is just like, what?
Well, and I thought at first that it was just the quality of the film itself, but you're saying like it was actually dubbed, so that makes more sense as to like because the quality that you had sent me, it's not bad at all.
Yeah,
but I did notice the dialogue being a little bit, off at certain junctures.
Yeah,
so that makes sense now.
Yeah, it was dubbed.
I wonder why the French part has so much to do with it. Just seems so random that this would be like, because you don't get that vibe at all that it has anything to do with anything foreign other than American. It feels very American.
Well, it does kind of have that quality though that I really love about I mean, these could be like numerous midnight movies, but do you know Claudio Fragasso at all? He did Troll 2. Do you know that movie?
No.
Oh, so I'll do another episode, and I'll force you to watch Troll 2. It'll be really good. But his films,
I'm sure people know what that is.
Oh yeah. Like he's affiliated with Bruno Mattei, and their films, they're Italian directors that would make like ripoffs of American films, or so they would make these horror movies or sci-fi movies or action movies, and they would insert this idea of like Americana that is just so absurd. That I absolutely love. And to me, it's like, you watch that at midnight or 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. and I can't stop laughing. And that's totally alive in Nightmare Weekend. So
it's not like it's their version of what they think America is. Yeah. Is that how you would best describe it? Okay. So It's not like accurate, but it's
no, not at all.
But it's an impression of what they think that we're like.
Right.
Basically.
And I don't know if full disclosure, I'm Canadian. So I don't know if that adds like an extra element to me, because, American and Canadian culture they're pretty different. Well, they're not that different, but maybe there is like a slight distance that makes it funnier to me. Like maybe it's easier for me to laugh at someone's attempt at American culture, especially from the 80s, which was just such a like bizarre time of overly commercialized everything, and just, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it was kind of the peak of also, not necessarily silliness, but like, sort of a willingness to be all out, because I've noticed this happen even in like Rob's movie that he picked, Never Too Young to Die. Like, that one also has the same vibe, and it was in 86.
Yeah.
Where the music and the sort of stilted dialogue almost of how people talk. It's not exactly how people talk, but it's what you're saying, where it's like someone imagining how an American person would talk.
Like it's like catchphrasey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And almost noir in the way where, like where when I watch noir, I'm like, nobody talks like this, but it's kind of like an idealized way of speaking.
It's artificial, but it's artificial. At least with noir, it's more sophisticated.
Yes.
And this is more like, you never get what you want. Like, do you remember that?
Yeah. And this is very, I've noticed in things like this too, where a lot of the dialogue is just fact-based. It's not really emotive, so much as like trying to drive a plot forward.
It's all exposition. But it's also like non sequitur-y at times, Just like, why did they say that? That scene where the boss woman it says to the maid, like, you're a slut just like your mother.
Just like your mother.
Came out of nowhere. They don't follow that up. Who's her mom? Nope. Why did she say that?
What connection does this woman have? So Bob, you as a cinephile, you just want to be moved in some way, like by these absurd sort of drastic scenarios.
Yeah.
And like
statements.
Yeah.
I want to be excited. Like you don't throw on a movie called Nightmare Weekend to have like this compelling story told to you. You throw on Nightmare Weekend because you want to see electricity effects jumping around the screen and like crazy gore and a nonsensical plot. Like, to me, I think it does what it says it's going to do. So, which brings me to, because I showed you.
I was about to ask you, just please show the memorabilia.
So Vinegar Syndrome put this Blu-ray out a few years ago, and then they did a special edition slipcover for it. And I showed these to Amy when we were talking about this a week ago. And I don't know if this adds any cohesion or coherency to the film. Or
intrigue, perhaps.
Intrigue, for sure, because I want to watch all of these movies. But so this is the slipcover, right? So that's so is Nightmare Weekend this movie? Or
Exhibit B.
Is it this movie?
My favorite one of 3.
I get that. Or is it this movie?
Wow.
So now that you've watched it, Amy, like, which one is it?
I'd be hard-pressed to answer this question. I'm going to say, I'm going to go with the first one. Just off of...
I know why.
Gut instinct. Tell me.
The Silver Sphere.
That's really what I was trying to... You know what? I feel like the Silver Sphere is the only continuity that exists as far as you trying to hold on to something that keeps popping up.
Right.
Because that's sort of the catalyst of how the woman not controls other people, but like affects.
But I thought, okay, so are the Silver Spheres controlled by Apache, the computer?
Yeah, the computer is controlled by her, right?
No. The computer's controlled by George, and George is its own being. And George,
so the puppet's his own being.
I thought it was. I don't know.
So she's just sort of monitoring, is what you're saying. She's like on the sidelines.
So I think, this is what I took away from it the last time I watched it, was that she actually has nothing to do with controlling George or Apache. Those are inventions of the main character's father. And so this woman instead is doing another experiment that isn't explained at all. But we do see an end result of the experiment because the college girls turn into like mutants.
Yep.
And it ends like that.
Spoiler alert, Bob.
Spoiler alert. It's A Nightmare Weekend. Like the weekend ends bad. What did you expect?
I from this point forward, I am never going to attempt to have a show with my friends where they don't spoil anything.
Oh, okay.
You have cemented it. Because originally,
I apologize.
Originally, I was like, everybody's not going to, but we're past it. We're past it, Bob. I've accepted this.
Okay. You're right. I'm actually one of the people out there that does respect you don't spoil a film.
However, you check the box.
However, I do think if someone had heard us talk about this, they could still watch the movie and feel like they have no idea.
Spoil anything.
Yeah, what is coming? I have no idea. I mean, like, what about the flashback with the motorcycle racing and his friend and stuff? Like,
and
what?
The editing, Bob. The editing. I mean,
well, the editor. I mean, yeah, it was just essentially like put these scenes together.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we need to get this movie out. We're on a deadline. Let's just piece it together as best as we can. Call it a day.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Good luck.
Yeah.
Because the editing is so abrupt. Like you'll literally be like in a sex scene and then it'll cut like that. And then there's just no smooth transitions whatsoever. So I would say that's probably the defining characteristic, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just how choppy everything goes.
Although it was the recent watch I did where I found the connecting thread was really the love story between, I can't remember her name right now, but the daughter, like the main girl and Dale Midkiff. That was continuous. That was like, it's going somewhere. Even though he seemed to be like going with everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And she had this bizarre conversation with the puppet, like,
I love that.
Where she's like, I feel, what did she say? It's like, I feel so strange. And it's got this like innocent, like summer camp.
It's like, what is this, the Babysitter's Club or something? Like
exactly. And then we're getting into like someone having sex on a pinball machine, and the guy is like pulling the lever as it's going on, and some dude is like pouring beer. The bartender is pouring beer as he's watching, and everyone's just like cool with,
Well, do you remember like the limo driver who kept drinking the booze from the sandwiches?
Yeah.
And then the girl has the dry sandwich. And like, man, this movie.
This movie. Okay. So my final question to you, Bob.
Okay.
And I already know what your answer is.
Oh, okay.
But how midnight is this movie? What is the appropriate time in your view as a person who's watched this many times?
So
for someone to watch this for the first time.
I think that this is more of a 4 a.m. film.
Oh.
Yeah, this is to me like the midnight marathon or the horror movie marathon or whatever is like going to the end, and the stragglers left. They're just like, we gotta microwave these assholes' brains so that they can get out of our theater, and we put on Nightmare Weekend so they can finish their popcorn and beer and get them the heck out of here.
And then go to sleep.
But the reason why I wanted to present this on your podcast about midnight films is that I do think if any theater played this before midnight, that they should be arrested.
Yes, it should be illegal, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Let's just say no one should ever watch this prior to midnight.
Yeah. I mean, I've done it a few times, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to live to do another day, as they say. But yes, don't watch this before midnight. But watch it a lot after midnight. Oh, did you watch it after midnight? Well,
I mean, no, initially I did prior, but then this past time I did at the correct time.
But
because your brain has to sort of be jelly.
Yes.
I would say. And you have to sort of hop on, be willing to go wherever it takes you. And that's so much easier when you're tired.
Yeah,
I would say.
that's
or
true.
just more susceptible. So I'm going to go with you. I'm going to say, if you say 4 a.m., I'm going to say probably 2.
Oh, okay.
Maybe not the last thing you watch before you go to bed.
Okay. You don't want any nightmares about George or Apache or Silver Spheres or...
no puppets in your nightmares. Yeah. There's also a very... Like, one of the characters likes to dance.
Yes! Tony with the Walkman, yeah.
With the Walkman. But then I'm also thinking of the woman who does, like, the little dance to the record.
Oh, she's like... no, I'm thinking the main girl when she's like, I can't hear you.
Yes. Really, honestly, this has to be seen to be believed. It's kind of like Roar in that way, where like we can sit here and dissect it, but you really will not understand until you sort of
I would argue, though, that
witness it.
Roar resulted in more harm towards people. So.
Towards humanity?
Yeah. I think only people's careers were hurt by doing Nightmare
Weekend. Yeah. Okay, and before we go, Bob, tell me briefly, how did you even hear about this?
Oh, yeah. Because
I have to know that.
Yeah, one of my best friends, he's on Letterboxd, Belial_Carboni. So he showed me this film, I want to say like 2016 or something. And I'd never heard of Vinegar Syndrome, the company that put it out. And he just put it on. I think we didn't even watch it with the sound on. We had like music playing. And I remember just being like, what is this movie? And then
why would you watch a movie for the first time with the sound off? I've never heard of anybody doing that in my life.
We live dangerously, okay?
In 2016?
Yes. You've never heard of that before? What do you mean?
I never have.
Well, you got to do it. You got to do it.
On the edge.
Live on the edge.
Living on the edge.
Yeah.
Okay. I have never. Not for the first time, at least. I mean, maybe like, as it goes down the line.
It's a decadent thing, really, if you think about it. You're really wasting something by doing that, but it can be really amazing, too. And with Nightmare Weekend, I think we made the right choice. Or I made the right choice. So.
You made the right choice because you ended up rewatching it so many times that it didn't even...
I bought it immediately, and then I watched it like so many times. I went to Europe with my wife, and I came back, like this was like a month later, and I came home, and I felt like I was still like on the plane because I've been flying for like 10 hours or something, and I was just lying in bed, and I was like, what am I going to watch? Probably Nightmare Weekend. And I watched Nightmare Weekend while like this on my bed.
Okay, everybody who is friends with me, please follow Bob. Bob is a maniac, and I have never met anyone like you, Bob. So
that's so nice. Thank you.
It has been. Yeah. Well,
no, I take that as a compliment. I do.
No, it is. Yes, it's been a pleasure, and I hope that people watch this movie just to share in my complete disorientation and confusion.
Thank you for having me.